Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending this interview. I really appreciate this, and I would like to welcome on Media Inform TV channel our distinguished guest, Mr. Reinhard Klochik, who is serving as a Secretary General of the European Union. Good morning, Mr. Klochik.
Good morning.
Well, I know you for last 2 years, and this is the first interview when you don't have behind yourself this big banner, Pan-European Union banner. What happened? Has somebody stole it?
No, I'm still at home, and this background is in the office, and I don't have such a background here at home.
Okay, I understand. Probably you have to claim additional banner for your household.
Yes.
Mr. Klitsch,
yeah.
Mr. Klitsch, I know that recently head of Pan-European Union, the representative of Habsburg family, he made an address to Europe. He made an address to European people about the situation with security, with other issues. Would you be so kind to tell more about this address and why this address was important?
Well, it is his annual speech on the future of Europe. We started this series of speeches some years ago. First, it was in April, then we decided to have it on his birthday, which is the 11th of January. And the idea is to give an analysis of the situation in Europe, and also to make proposals what we should do in European politics, what kind of reforms we have to do in the European Union, but also, and this was a special topic in this speech now, we have to do because of the challenges that we are facing because of the war Russia started against Ukraine, what that means for European foreign and security policy.
Mr. Klochik, now we are heading towards the anniversary of Russian invasion into Ukraine. So,
yeah,
on 24th of February, we will have 1 year since the full-scale invasion. What is your prediction? How long it will take this war? And what is an acceptable outcome for European Union?
I fear that this war will not stop in this year. I mean, there is still capacity from the Russian side. Just check how much ammunition they have and what they can produce. Mm-hmm. And the main force is artillery, so they can prolong this war into the next year at least. And I think they will do that. They try to get at least a part of Ukraine to show some positive result for this special operation, as they call it. Yeah. I would say for the European Union, there is the same, has to be the same goal as it has to be for Ukraine, to kick out the Russians of the territorium of Ukraine. Why? Because if we accept that a country like Russia just takes pieces of other countries, who would be the next who has this idea and says, okay, now I'm taking I don't know what, yeah, and then we restart a period of war, and we cannot afford that. We want peace, and we want prosperity, and we want democracy and free market economy, and not old Soviet-style imperialistic, whatever it is, politics like Putin is doing it.
Post-Soviet space is a concept which is constantly challenging by Ukraine. And you know that inside Ukraine, people who use this concept as a post-Soviet space always treated as people who disseminate Russian propaganda. But we understand that outside Ukraine, in European Union, among Western intellectuals, still post-Soviet space as a concept is widely used. So what has changed since the full-scale invasion? Do Western intellectuals, from your point of view, still refer Ukraine to the post-Soviet space? Because we understand that from the inception, Baltic states from 1991, they were considered separately, and they were not considered as a part of post-Soviet space. You know, because as it is said all people are equal, but still there are people who are more equal than others. So we understand what you're talking about. So, what has changed?
Well, what has changed is the perception of Ukraine. You should not forget that, and you are right, Ukraine for many people was part of, somehow it is the same as Russia. Nobody cared about Ukrainian history, etc. Nobody cared that this is an independent country. Nobody cared that you have your own language, that you have your own famous writers, etc., etc. This was just known in a very small part of people who deal with this part of Europe. They still had this concept of Ukraine as a buffer state between Europe and Russia. The fact that Russia invaded Ukraine first in 2014 and then in 2022, I would say, changed the perception of Ukraine. People start to realize that Ukraine is not Russia, that Ukraine started to go its own way out of this post-Soviet or former Soviet space. But we have to face the fact that there are still people who don't care about it and say, okay, this is a part of Russia, and it's just natural that the Russians want to have back their territory. But I would say in the moment that these so-called intellectuals are there, but in politics, a majority is supporting the independence of Ukraine, and therefore supporting, not enough, but at least supporting Ukraine.
Here is a very serious anniversary, so many people who wanted to come back to Ukraine, even though there is a war, they came back. Because even though we still suffer from an energetic terrorist attack from Russia, but still the situation relaxed in terms of predictability. At least many people came back, and they know many people who came back from Austria, even though Austria has a marvelous standards of living, but always, for some people, home is a home. Yeah, but still, there are many people, Ukrainians, who decided to reside in the European Union, who pay taxes there, who found a job there, who contribute to the system, not only enjoy the system, but contribute to the system. We know the position of Canada, where traditionally Ukrainian lobby is very strong, and Canada already promised to grant a citizenship for Ukrainians who reside in Canada. What is about Austria? What is the discussion in the media, let's say, and among politicians?
I have no idea if there is any discussion about that. I did not hear anything about that. I know that in Germany that there are discussions and that they at least started to talk about the possibility to get German citizenship for people who learn the language, etc., etc. I did not hear about such ideas in Austria.
Mr. Kulichik, I would like to ask you several questions about, let's say, the perception of this war in media, because we understand that the media always, let's say, create a picture for society. I understand for Austrians, Russian-Ukrainian war is not the first problem on the level. I understand, because obviously people are affected by their daily issues. So how media, let's say, Austrian media changed through the last year? I mean, do you find there more, let's say, Ukrainian positions, or there is a strong Russian influence? Because I know I had an interview with Mr. Martin Malek, a good friend of ours, and he suggested that there are many articles in Austrian press which stipulated that the European Union has to keep very strong ties with Russia, etc., etc. So how the media outlets now shape public perception of Russian aggression towards Ukraine?
Well, from my perspective, I would say, of course, there is much more awareness about the situation in Ukraine in our media. Sorry. There are more articles, there are reports, there are even reports about Ukrainians in Austria yeah, from history and also nowadays. There is a lot of Ukrainian organizations which are active here, presenting their culture, active in supporting Ukrainians, etc., etc. And yes, you also have the other side in our media represented, and it depends on the paper, on the daily, or on the TV channel, which are more Russian orientated than it should be. But in general, I would say, and as I mentioned it before, the awareness what Ukraine is, and that this is an aggression from a Russian side and not just a brother war or whatever you want to call it, civil war, this awareness is raising.
Mr. Kluchkin, last question, obviously, about Austrian political situation. Obviously, Russian-Ukrainian war affects political systems inside West. We saw the same example when there was a refugee crisis, which basically led to, as well as financial crisis, which basically led to the Brexit, to Trump, other, let's say, uprising of right movement, contrary to the left movement. So how can you assess the situation now in Austria? How Russian war against Ukraine affected the political sympathies and the political chess box in Austria?
Any war has somehow an influence in the political sphere, not only in Austria, but also in the other countries, because there are people who say, this is not my war, I don't care about it, I just want to live my life, so don't care about it, and let's stop the war however it is stopped, and I don't care about Ukraine. And it also influences, of course, the system of political parties, because when you are a party and when you want to collect voters, you will try to get those people who have this very, let's say, simple approach to the situation, who don't care about anything, and come with crazy ideas like we are neutral, so we must not do anything for Ukraine. This is just their case, and don't care about it. And you have that on the so-called right, but you also have that on the so-called left, or on the left. I mean, when you say Social Democrats and parties left of the Social Democrats, you have this old, how do you call it, solidarity with the Soviet Union. Yeah, this is still there, and these people are there, and they also have money like the so-called right-wing organizations have. But thanks God, it's not the majority.
Mr. Kolich, thank you very much for this interview. For our distinguished audience, I would like to remind that today on our show, Mr. Kluchik, Secretary General of the European Union, is present. Thank you very much, Mr. Kluchik.
Thank you. Do pobачення.